Your mom blocked my card. I can't even buy a damn closet. That's exactly what he shouted. Morning sunlight still on the hardwood floors, coffee still hot in my hand, and already the devil was moving through my phone before 9 a.m. His voice was shaking. Breathless. Disrespect dressed up as urgency. Like I was the villain in his story, and he just woke up ready for war. My name is Lorraine Mitchell, 56 years old, South Atlanta born and raised. I got hands that been washing collard greens since I was 9 and a voice that don't rise unless something is about to break. I been a mother longer than some folks been alive, and I know the difference between a cry for help and a warning shot. And what I heard in my son's voice at 9:07 that morning was not fear. It was entitlement turned ugly. Before we go any further, tell me one thing in the comments. Did your grandmother ever speak truths that stung, but saved you later? Mine used to tell me, baby, real trouble never shows up looking like trouble. It knocks sweet first. I still remember sitting beside her, listening till sleep took over. Let me know if you remember those nights too. He didn't even give me room to breathe. Why would you do that, Ma? Jamal yelled through the speaker like I was supposed to run. I'm standing here about to pay for something for my home, my wife, and your name pops up blocking the transaction like I'm some kinda child. I didn't answer fast. I never do. Silence is a weapon in my house, and I wield it better than any raised voice. But then, the front door slammed open. Hard. I didn't even have time to put the mug down before I heard his footsteps coming straight down my hallway. Not knocking. Not asking. Just entering. Like a man storming a battlefield he was ready to burn down. Like he forgot whose house this is. Bam! He hit the doorframe of the kitchen so hard it rattled my cabinets. Sweat on his face. Phone still in his hand. Eyes wide, not from fear. From rage. My own son. You went behind me, he shouted. You blocked my money. I looked at him slow. Calm. The way my grandmother used to when a snake was too close to a child's ankle. How did you get here this fast? I asked. He didn't answer. Didn't realize he'd just exposed himself. Every muscle in him was tight, jaw flexing, fist swollen from punching something before he arrived. He smelled like rushed breath and asphalt. And right behind him, Tasha. My daughter-in-law. Mouth shaking. Eyes red. Didn't even look at me. That already told me more than she ever would. Don't you dare twist this, he said. I spent months saving for this. One purchase. A closet. I can't even buy a closet without you pulling puppet strings. He was pacing now. Like he wanted to hit something, but I was the last line before jail time. Not scared, but disappointed. Because I raised that boy with gentle hands and iron rules. But love without boundaries becomes permission to disrespect. You never asked me, Jamal, I said quietly. Because I shouldn't have to ask, he fired back. And there it was. Not about a card. Not about money. A war of who thinks they own their own life. A war almost every black mother in America knows too well. But there was something else in his voice. Something underneath. Fear. Shame. Regret. No. A man who knew something before I did, and was terrified I might catch up. I saw it hit him too, the second he realized I wasn't shouting back. His face twitched. Because when I am silent like that, someone is about to learn. Did you really think I did that? I asked. He hesitated. That's all I needed. You sure it was Emmy who blocked it? His mouth opened, closed, opened again. That silence between us. That 2 seconds of brain scrambling. That was the moment I knew this wasn't about me at all. His anger was real, but his target got chosen for him. And I was just the name they fed him. I sat my coffee down. Real slow. And said one thing, the sentence that changed everything that came after. Jamal, who told you it was me? Everything in his body shifted. He didn't answer. Didn't have to. Because right then, another phone started ringing. Not his. Mine. The name on the screen. Tasha's mother. And baby. That is the moment I knew, they had just started a war. In the wrong woman's house. That phone kept ringing. Loud, sharp, shameless, like a woman who got too used to calling shots in houses she don't even pay light bills in. Tasha froze, eyes on the floor. Jamal glanced at the screen like it was a summons from God. I didn't move. I just stared at him, and let it ring. 3 rings. 4. Then silence. The house felt like it was holding its breath. "I'ma ask you again," I said softly. "Who told you it was me?" Jamal wouldn't look at me now. His anger was fading, not because he calmed down, but because his certainty was cracking. His shoulders sank a little. His mouth clenched sideways, like a man realizing he may be been played. Tasha shifted her weight. Still wouldn't make eye contact. That silence between us, phew. If that air was any thicker, somebody would suffocate before the truth even came out. Then Jamal muttered, barely audible, "They said you controlled it. The bank said your name was." "They?" I cut in. "Who is they?" That question felt like a slap. Not loud, but stinging. Because when a fully grown man says they instead of a name, that means he ain't leading his life. He following it. And he knew I knew. Jamal rubbed his face hard. Shame now flickering behind the leftover anger. Then, the phone rang again. Same number. This time. I answered. I turned on speaker. "Hello," I said smoothly. "Lorraine." A sharp voice fired through. "What have you done? Do you have any idea what you just caused? Jamal and Tasha are humiliated standing in a store because you blocked their card like some jealous." I hit mute. Not a single blink. Just looked at my son. The way his face changed when he heard the tone that woman used on me, that was the moment his rage broke. Because see, Jamal knows me. Knows how I speak. Knows how I was raised. Ain't no woman twice removed from my blood gon' call my name like that. Not in this house. And he knew, if he had spoken to her mama like that, she'd have told him, "Stay in your place." But for some reason, she didn't. That right there was the first crack in the spell. He whispered, "Ma." I didn't know she. I raised one finger. "Listen," I said. "Both of you." I tapped the mute off. Left the snake hissing. "This is exactly why I told Jamal he needed to cut the cord with you," the woman continued, her voice drenched in fake righteousness. "You are always meddling." Click. I hung up. Peacefully. Set the phone down flat. And I turned my full body toward Jamal. "You let that woman speak on Emmy like that?" Not loud. Not a threat. Just a question carved in stone. He swallowed. Hard. His ears red. His hands trembling now, but not with rage. With realization. Because this ain't about a closet. Or a card. Or money. This is about control. And somebody else thought they had the right to control my son, and use my name to do it. I leaned forward. Calm. Too calm. "Jamal. Let me ask you very slow, so you don't miss the weight of what's happening right now." His eyes were wet. Focused. Good. He was finally present. "When you left this house, whose values did you carry with you? Mine? Or hers?" The kind of silence that followed, you don't ever forget that kind. Because that's when a grown man hears his mother as a mother again, not as interference. His voice broke. Soft. Regret already tasting the edges. "She said, Mom, she said you were trying to stop us from having independence. From being adults. And you believed her." Pain in that question. But no anger. "Not yet." He nodded. That's when I stood up. Slow. Tasha gasped quietly like movement alone was threat. Because she knew. I didn't stand unless I was done explaining. But I wasn't angry at them. I was disappointed at how easy it was. I walked past them, not rushing, toward my old wooden cabinet near the hallway. Opened it. Pulled out a long white envelope. Thick. Sealed. Untouched. Walked back. Set it in front of them. Jamal frowned. "What's that?" I looked him dead in the eyes. "That," I said, "is proof that I didn't block anything." Tasha's head jerked up. Jamal's face went pale. Because his fear wasn't about the truth. It was about what that meant. That someone else had fed him a lie. And he had already chosen a side. Not mine. I stepped back. And said the words that shifted the entire battlefield into my hands. Go on. Open it. And baby, what was inside that envelope was about to change everything. The envelope sat on the table between us like it had a heartbeat. Jamal stared at it, trembling slightly, hands hovering over the flap as if touching it would unleash a storm. Tasha watched too, wide-eyed, silent, her mouth opening and closing like a fish out of water. The room felt heavy, thick with tension, as if the walls themselves were leaning in to listen. I sat back, arms crossed, calm as Sunday morning. My calm was the first strike, the one that made them realize the battlefield wasn't theirs to command. Jamal finally tore the envelope open. Inside were receipts, statements, and a clear log of every transaction, every purchase, every blocked attempt, none of them mine. His eyes darted from page to page, confusion and shame growing with each passing second. Mom, he started, voice shaky. I don't understand. This proves. I held up a hand. Don't. Not yet. Let me finish. He froze, because I rarely raised my voice. Rarely. But when I do, it's a sound that carries the weight of a lifetime of lessons, the kind that makes you rethink every choice you've made. Jamal, someone else has been pulling strings. Someone who thought they could use your anger, your trust, your love for me, to make you dance on their strings. Someone who thought they could control your life by making you believe your own mother is the enemy. My eyes locked on his. Do you understand? He swallowed. Nodded, but the guilt was a fire burning deep. Tasha's hand trembled as she clutched his arm. I didn't flinch. I let them feel it. Let them stew in the realization. Then the calls started again. This time, the number was blocked on my phone. Clever. They thought they could hide. But hiding never works when you know the game. I picked up the envelope, flipping through the papers carefully, almost leisurely. See these? I said, pointing at a series of transactions. Blocked. By someone else. Third-party authorization. Every time, someone else stepped in. Someone who didn't want you to have what you earned. Someone who wanted to humiliate you, in front of me, in front of the world. In front of everyone who matters. Jamal's knees buckled slightly. I should have. He buried his face in his hands. The weight of betrayal from outside and inside his own mind crushed him. Tasha tried to soothe him, but I knew she too was shaken. She had never imagined the depth of deceit that ran in her own family. I leaned forward, voice quiet but razor sharp. This isn't just about money, Jamal. It's about respect. About power. About who decides what your life looks like. They wanted you small, contained, obedient, and when they failed, they tried to make you angry. They thought your anger would do their work for them. Make you fight me. Make you break me. Make you. I stopped, letting the silence linger like a knife. Think you were the victim. Jamal lifted his head. His eyes met mine, full of questions, full of shame, full of a dawning horror. Mom, why didn't you tell me? I let out a small sigh, almost a whisper. Because, baby, part of surviving is learning to see the puppeteers before they cut the strings. I wanted you to see it. To feel it. To understand that rage without clarity can be weaponized against you. Tasha's sister, the one who had called the bank, the one who had set the whole thing in motion, sent a text. A taunt, short, confident, dripping with the audacity of someone who thought she had control. Guess Mama ain't so strong after all. I picked up my phone, read it slowly, then looked at Jamal. They think they know fear. But fear is for people who've never seen what happens when you step on the wrong matriarch's porch. Jamal's anger returned, but it was tempered now with understanding. His fists clenched, not to strike, but to act. Mom. I silenced him with a look. Not a glare. Just a look. The kind that made him pause and reconsider every move he thought he could make. Then, just like that, I began to plan. Slowly. Quietly. Calculating each step, each message, each opportunity to turn the tide. They had thought they could humiliate us, manipulate us, make Jamal think he was powerless. They hadn't accounted for patience, intelligence, or experience. And they certainly hadn't accounted for me. I watched Jamal process everything, his brain clicking like the pieces of a puzzle he had been too blind to see before. He finally nodded, swallowing hard. "Mom, what do we do?" I smiled, but it wasn't a warm smile. It was a strategic one. The kind that makes you realize your opponent has already lost the game before it's even begun. "We wait," I said. "And we let them make the next mistake. Every move they make now will only make them fall faster. They wanted war. Fine. They'll have it, on my terms." Tasha's face paled. She whispered, almost to herself, You're going to get them back." "Not just back," I said, voice soft but unyielding. "They're going to regret the day they ever tried to touch my family. Not with yelling. Not with fists. But with every quiet, inevitable step I've been planning since the day they thought they could step on us." And in that moment, Jamal saw it. The calm storm in my eyes. The kind of revenge that doesn't scream, doesn't post on social media, doesn't announce itself. It waits. It observes. It dismantles quietly, efficiently, and mercilessly. I leaned back, crossed my arms, and let the silence fill the room again. Jamal sat beside me, trembling but attentive, understanding now that anger alone wouldn't win this battle, strategy would. And strategy, baby, was exactly what they hadn't counted on. The first move was theirs. The second, the one that would hurt them, that was mine. And I knew, with absolute certainty, they had no idea what was coming. They say the smallest lies make the biggest footprints. I learned that in Atlanta, watching people step around truths like potholes on Peachtree. By the time Chapter 4 should have been called, I was cataloging every small thing they left behind: a call at noon, a coffee cup in a neighbor's trash, a remark that didn't fit the pattern. I started where you always start when somebody tries to make you look crazy, with other people's eyes. Mrs. Henderson from down the block, she owns a little hair salon on Campbellton Road, called me and said she'd seen Tasha's mother at the church thrift sale the week before. Looked like she was making a list, Mrs. Henderson said. Not of clothes. Of people. That phrase lodged in my chest like a thorn. People make lists when they're planning. Cloth doesn't need lists. I spent that afternoon walking through the fragments of the story. Went to Jamal's bank in East Atlanta, sat at a plastic chair with the whining of the AC in the background, and asked for copies of the transaction logs they'd already mailed me. Banks never like being watched. They are polite and slow, like a man with a secret pocket. The teller gave me glances that said she knew too many things. She handed over paper with codes I didn't expect, notations like third-party restriction and initials that were not mine. Back home, I spread those papers across my kitchen table. The pattern looked random until you leaned in. Then it read like a sentence. Every time someone tried to buy something that would change their house, someone else stepped in. Not always the same number, not always the same bank. But the timing was neat. Predictable. Like someone rehearsed how to hurt a man's pride and then waited to see his reaction. Tasha tried to help. She wanted to go to Tasha's mother and talk it out. She wanted apologies, explanations, tears. Classic, clean endings. It's sweet that she still believed in clean endings, because that's not the world we live in. Tasha's mother was not a woman to apologize in public. She dressed scandals in silk and handed them out like dinner mints. The more I dug, the more I found her fingerprints smeared across other people's little tragedies. But then came the false lead. And honey, a false lead smells sweet until it kicks you. A neighbor, Julio from 2 doors down, his young, works construction in Buckhead, swore he saw Jamal sneaking late the night before the card was blocked. Said he saw Jamal in a hoodie, nervous, walking to a corner store and whispering on the phone. For a minute, I felt it. The old guilt, the reflex to defend a son like a mama bear who hasn't learned when the world's shift is his, not yours. Maybe he'd staged it. Maybe he'd been testing the waters. Maybe this whole thing was his drama to teach us a lesson about something else. I went to the corner store, the one on the way to the highway, not to accuse, but to listen. The clerk, a man named Andre, remembered a man in a hoodie that night. He described a figure whose posture was too young to be planning something cruel, too tired to be practicing lies. There were witness shadows everywhere. Each one was a little story, and stories like to change when you tell them. That night I sat on my porch in South Atlanta and thought about how many times in my life I'd been given a view of truth through smoke. My mother used to say, "You can tell a lie by the corners it cuts." Lies are always in the corners because they avoid light. I started shining my own light into the corners of this thing. I called a few people who owed me favors. I've been a neighborlier woman than most. People answer me because I remember their birthdays, because I speak when others stay quiet. You'd be surprised how quickly folks talk when they think it's about church bake sales. One block over, an old friend, Denise, who runs a daycare in West End, told me about a man who'd asked questions about Jamal a few weeks back. Not casual things, she said. He wanted to know if Jamal had savings, what his job looked like, if he was buying anything for his house. The more people I asked, the more the shape of a stranger began to appear. Not a stranger by blood, but a stranger by intention. As I traced their steps, I also watched my son watch me. He saw me unravel what they thought was a neat story. Looked at him like you look at someone after they've taken a cross-country trip and come back acting like the world belongs to them. He was learning to accept the idea that he'd been used. That's a bitter medicine. I started to test the water with small, precise things. Sent out emails that sounded like mistakes, made calls from numbers no one knew, asked for confirmations that would make the orchestrators uncomfortable. It's funny how people's true faces show when they're being clever. Some try to be kind. Others get aggressive, defensive, like a dog with a hurt paw. If you're listening right now, I want you to picture this. Sometimes the best revenge is not the shout or the slap. It's the careful unpicking of a sweater until the pattern comes apart and you're left with nothing but threads. If you're listening right now, please like, subscribe, and share, and drop your birth year in the comments. If we're the same age, maybe I'll tell you one of the other secrets that saved me once. That night, the real clue came from the most boring place, a utility bill. I know, it sounds small. But utility bills are honest. They track feet, addresses, dates. I noticed a delivery confirmation stamped at 2:13 a.m. on the night before the card was blocked. A package delivered to an old apartment building 3 blocks from Tasha's mother's house in Midtown Atlanta. Not clothes. Not a closet part. A small device, a credit card reader. I felt something cold under my ribs when I read it. The kind of cold you feel when you realize the other side has been playing by a different book. Who sent that device? Who activated it? Who thought to hide it in a package and leave it where no one would look? These are the questions that begin to breathe life into a plan. And as I sat with that paper in my hands, looking out at the streetlights that hum along Cascade Avenue, I realized 2 truths. First, they had expected to win by confusion. Second, they had underestimated me. There are strategies that start small. A phone call here. A receipt there. A planted witness in a corner store. But every strategy has a beginning, and every beginning leaves a trace. I had found theirs. And I smiled, because once you find a trace, you can follow it. It was all there on my kitchen table. The device, the bills, the receipts, the quiet little notes tucked in envelopes that were never meant to see the light of day. I sat back in my chair and looked at Jamal and Tasha like I'd been holding a secret from them their whole lives, and, in a way, I had. But not the kind they thought. Not the kind they deserved. Jamal was still pale, rubbing his hands together as if trying to erase every bad choice he'd ever made. Tasha's hands were clenched tightly in her lap, fingernails digging crescents into her palms. They thought the betrayal came from me. That I was the one who blocked the card, humiliated them, and made them doubt themselves. They didn't know the half of it. Open this. I slid a manila folder toward them. My calm voice filled the room like a gospel hymn that carries warning and truth at the same time. Everything you've been blaming me for, it's not me. Jamal hesitated. His hands hovered over the folder like it might explode. Tasha leaned in, curiosity mixed with dread. I let them watch the seconds stretch. Let the silence make its mark. Finally, Jamal flipped it open. The first thing they saw was the log of transactions, every block, every authorization, every failed purchase. But it wasn't the numbers that made their stomachs drop. It was the name at the top. Tasha's mother. Every single time. Not me. Not even Jamal by accident. Every single restriction, every manipulation, every humiliation, she had orchestrated it all. She had made my son doubt me, doubt himself, doubt everything we had built together as a family. Jamal's face went white. She did all this? Yes, I said softly. And she thought she could make you dance on strings she didn't even own. Tasha's lips trembled. I thought, Mom. I thought it was your idea too. I shook my head. No. That's exactly what she wanted you to believe. That I was the problem. That I was standing in the way. She wanted you angry, ready to strike me, ready to destroy what we have, so she could feel powerful. That's what she's always done. That's all she knows how to do. Jamal sank into a chair. His knees knocked together. Mom. I can't believe I believed her. I can't believe I placed a hand on his shoulder. It's okay. You were being manipulated. You were being lied to. And most people never notice until it's too late. I pulled out the last piece, the one that would make this reveal irreversible. A set of texts, a recording of a call. Tasha's mother's voice was there, clear as church bells at sunrise. Her voice dripped with mock sympathy. Lorraine has no idea she's standing in the way. You just let me handle it, she won't see it coming. I let them listen. Every syllable. Every pause. Every tiny laugh she couldn't suppress. Tasha gasped, covering her mouth. Jamal's hands flew to his head. She planned all of this? Yes. Every moment, I said. She tried to use you against me. Tried to humiliate you both in front of the world. Tried to make you doubt yourself. She wanted to win by making us doubt each other. But the thing about someone who's patient, someone who's been through her kind of manipulation before, is that we see the patterns. Jamal looked at me, voice breaking. Mom, what do we do? I let the silence settle before I answered. We wait. We don't react blindly. We let her think she's still in control. Every move she makes now will only make her fall faster. She wanted war? Fine. She'll get it. But on our terms, not hers. Tasha shook her head. But she's powerful. She's smart. She knows everyone and everything. I leaned in, voice low but steady. Smart. Maybe. Powerful. Only until she meets someone who isn't afraid to match her step for step. Someone who knows patience. Someone who knows silence can be louder than screams. Someone who knows how to make her regret ever touching my family. Jamal's eyes filled with understanding. Not blind trust anymore. Not fear. Understanding. He realized the depth of the game he'd almost lost, the depth of the betrayal he'd been blind to. And then I smiled. Not kindly. Not gently. But in that way a person smiles when the first moves of revenge are lined up perfectly, and the enemy doesn't even know the board has been set. I've already begun, I said. And baby, they are about to learn that the hands they tried to play with aren't soft. They're steady. And they're mine. For the first time, Jamal looked at me and saw the storm behind my calm. The kind that doesn't roar until it hits. The kind that leaves nothing standing. Tasha whispered, almost to herself, I didn't know she was like this. I straightened in my chair. You better learn fast. This is who I am. This is how I protect my family. And this is how I make people pay for underestimating me. And in that kitchen, under the soft hum of the ceiling fan and the weight of betrayal laid bare, the first real pieces of their reckoning began to fall into place. They thought the truth would hurt us. The truth. It's just the beginning. They hit back faster than I expected. Not with fists at first, no, with something more poisonous, reputation. The kind of lie that crawls into church pews and family reunions and sits there like someone who belongs. A picture. A caption. A whisper that ran through the neighborhood like fire through dry grass. Remember when Lorraine borrowed from Aunt Clara's funeral fund? Someone had posted it with old dates, half-truths stitched to empty accusations. It landed like a blow right between my ribs. Jamal saw it first. He came in from work, shoulders already heavy from everything, and his phone was shaking in his hand like the whole world was unstable. He looked at me, eyes searching for the woman he thought he knew. "Mom, they're saying." I knew the look. I have worn that look on nights my babies were small and the world got too loud. It is the look of someone trying to stitch two separate truths together and coming up with nothing but thread. I wanted to tell him it was a smear, that this was exactly the kind of thing the other side did when cornered. But what I felt then was not anger. It was the slow seep of cold, like water finding a crack it didn't know it would. The comments grew like mold. People who once waved at me from their porches stopped. Mrs. Henderson's salon chair where I had sat laughing about recipes a week ago suddenly felt like a gallery of strangers. People are cruel about what they think they know. Then someone called. A number I hadn't saved. "Lorraine, honey, you better answer for this." The voice on the other line was small and tremulous. It was Evelyn. My sister. I had been leaning on Evelyn for years. We shared recipes, birthdays, the kind of grief only sisters pass like heirlooms. She had keys to my childhood, to the ledger my grandmother kept in the closet under old quilts. I trusted her the way I trusted God on a Sunday morning. "Eve," I said carefully. "What is this? Who sent?" She started to cry. Not the kind of cry that seeks comfort. The kind that sounded like shame. "Laurie, I didn't want to do it, but she paid. Tasha's mema, she offered me, and I thought if I gave her the papers, she'd leave Jamal alone. I thought. Her voice broke itself into pieces. I let it. Let her confess the way people confess before the law steps in. "You gave them family papers?" I asked. My hands were steady, but inside, something heavy was falling away. "You sold our history?" "It wasn't supposed to go this far," Evelyn whispered. She called it justice. "She said you took from Aunt Clara. She said she'd fix Jamal and the kids." "Laurie, I swear," I thought. Thought what? That a liar would become a savior if given the right papers? I hung up. The phone felt like a hot coal in my hand. Betrayal bites deeper when it has your name carved into it. I walked straight to the kitchen, to the place where the ledger from my grandmother had once lived. I pulled open the old cabinet. The ledger was still there, wrapped in an oilcloth that smelled like mothballs and memory. I sat with it, my fingers tracing the handwriting of my grandmother, small, precise, unfriendly with anyone who tried to gloss over debts and favors. That ledger had taught me how to read people by the entries they left. It had taught me that paper can be truth and paper can be poison. Evelyn had taken a page. Not even the whole book. One page could be enough to make a life implode. She had handed it to Tasha's mother, handed her a weapon. And the weapon cut deep. When Jamal came back into the room, he saw me with the ledger in my lap and he looked lost. "Mom, I'm so sorry. I should have asked you first." He sounded hollow. The smear did what it needed to do. It made him doubt the woman who raised him, even while he wanted to believe. "That's the thing about lies," I said. "They ask you to do their work for them. They make you carry the load of their construction." My voice was low, not weak. The anger built like a storm behind a mountain. Evelyn called again. This time I answered. "Why?" I demanded before she could tell me words I already knew. She started with excuses, bills, threats, fear. She said the usual things people say when they have sold out. She cried about how Tasha's mother had reminded her of old slights, promised reparations, whispered that I had taken more than my share when our family was poor, when sometimes the past twists your memory and makes you believe false debts. She blamed hunger, spite, the heavy hand of a woman who knew how to play others. You learn the difference between excuse and reason after a certain number of winters. Excuses are the warm clothes people wear when they don't want to feel the cold. Reasons are the bone-deep truth. Evelyn draped excuses like shawls. They did not keep me warm. When I hung up, I felt something in me unwind. Not break. Unwind. Like a spool of patience reaching its end. I had been collecting evidence, watching the strands of their plan fall into my hands. I had let them move, expecting them to overreach. I had expected foul play. But not the smell of family on their hands. Never that. I stepped outside. The night air was cool. I walked down the porch steps without shoes. The concrete was honest under my feet. There are moments when the world feels honest again, when you can count your breaths and hear them. I breathed once. Twice. My grandmother's voice whispered at the edge of my memory, "Child, when a person cuts you, look to the hand that held the knife." I thought about Tasha's mother sitting across a table somewhere, smiling like she had already won. I thought about Evelyn, trembling in her house, telling herself she'd done the right thing for reasons that sound like children's bedtime stories. I thought about the neighbors who were swayed by a post and the cousins who took sides without thinking. Betrayal is a public thing. It lives in comments and group chats and in the mouths of those who want to feel superior for a minute. Revenge, if it is to be real, must be private first. It must be precise. It must be surgical. So I let myself feel it. The sharp, bitter hurt. The loneliness of being attacked by one blood and another. The knowledge that sometimes the people you love are the ones most ready to sell you down a river for a dry promise. And then something else rose in me, a steady, cold resolve. Not the hot, noisy kind that ruins things indiscriminately. The quiet kind, the one that plans like a woman who knows you by your habits and will beat you at them. I let that resolve fill the space where the hurt had been. I called Jamal back in. "We are not going to respond to the noise," I told him. "We are going to do something far meaner. We are going to show them the truth in a way that cannot be smeared away. We will not yell. We will not beg. We will demonstrate." His eyes looked at me, searching for the woman who had always been the solution, the keeper of calm. "How?" he asked. "Method," I said. "Precision. And the one thing your enemies never prepare for, patience." I explained that the ledger would be made public in a place where lies could not stand. That all the receipts, the logs, the recordings we had gathered, every single one, would be presented with clarity. That we would stitch back the parts of our story they had torn out of context and put it where people had to read it slowly, in black and white. He nodded. There was fear in his face still, but it was a working fear now. Useful. But before we could start unthreading their lies, there was one last sting, Evelyn. She had to understand what her choice meant. Not through threats, not through slander, but through consequences she could not bargain away. So I called her one last time. I spoke without fury. I spoke like a woman making a will. I told her she would come with me the next day and stand where truth was kept. She would sign a statement. She would answer for the hand she had lent. She would face what she had done to her family. She cried. She begged. She offered more excuses. I listened and then I hung up. No forgiveness yet. No mercy, not because I wanted cruelty, but because mercy before accountability is just another cloak for harm. There is a part of revenge that is about satisfaction. Another part is about correction. I wanted both, for them to hurt in the place where they had hurt us, and for their hands to be forced into making things right. As I shut the door on the night, the house felt like it had been hollowed out and someone had left behind the plans for rebuilding. I did not sleep. I sat with the ledger, with the recordings, with the weight of family and the edges of a storm I was about to raise. In the morning, we would begin laying out the pieces in public. But tonight, I let the betrayal sit with me like a guest I did not invite. I fed it with resolve and let it teach me what to do next. The morning sun hit the kitchen windows with a false calm, like the world was unaware of the storm about to break inside it. I poured myself coffee, the kind that burns the tongue if you sip too fast, and watched Jamal and Tasha hover over the papers we'd gathered. Every sheet, every receipt, every recording was a bullet waiting to be fired. I didn't need to say much, they already understood the gravity of what we were about to do. The first step was confrontation. Not the kind where fists fly or voices crack like glass, but the kind that strips someone of their illusions in front of the witnesses they thought would never see. I called Tasha's mother. Her voice was syrupy and confident, dripping with the arrogance of someone who believed they could scare a 50-year-old woman into submission. "Lorraine," she purred, "you've crossed a line. Don't think." I didn't let her finish. Calm, measured, controlled. You need to meet me today. Alone. And you need to bring every piece of deception you've planted in our lives. There was a pause on the other end. For a brief second, I heard the cracks in her armor. That pause told me she knew I was not bluffing. She swallowed her pride, or maybe she realized she couldn't, and agreed. We arranged the meeting at a small, neutral cafe in East Atlanta. I picked it for 2 reasons. No one knew me there, and the staff was discreet. The perfect stage for a reckoning. Jamal and Tasha came with me. Not as children, but as witnesses. They were still learning the power of presence, the kind of presence that demands truth without raising a hand. I could see the mix of fear and resolve in their eyes. I smiled at them. This is your lesson in reading people, I said softly. Watch. Learn. Remember. This is how you protect yourself. When she arrived, she looked the same as always, pristine, polished, confident. But there was something different, a flicker in her eyes, a hesitation in her steps. She had underestimated me. Big mistake. I placed the ledger on the table, opened it carefully, and began laying out the evidence. Receipts, blocked transactions, texts, and recordings. Each one was a strike, precise, undeniable. Every lie she had built her confidence on collapsed under the weight of cold, hard proof. You thought you could manipulate my son. You thought you could humiliate us. You thought you could touch my family and walk away, I said. My voice was steady, low, deliberate. Look closely. Every move you made is here. Every whisper. Every false claim. Every smear. Her mouth opened, closed, opened again. No words. That's when Jamal, finally finding his voice, added, Mom, she lied to me. She made me doubt you. Tasha's hand found mine under the table. She tried to ruin us, she said quietly. I nodded. Yes. And now, you are accountable. The color drained from her face. For the first time, the confidence she wielded like a weapon faltered. I leaned forward slightly. Do you understand? Every move you made to control my son, to control me, to control this family, it is finished. You have no stage left. No audience. Only truth. And this truth doesn't forget. She tried to speak. Tried to charm. Tried to manipulate the narrative. But every word she attempted was met with another piece of evidence. Each lie dissolved in the light of facts she could not fabricate. I watched her crumble, piece by piece. Not with glee, no, this was deeper. This was justice, meticulous, inevitable, merciless. Jamal's eyes were wide with the kind of awe that comes when a son sees his mother wield authority with grace and precision. Tasha's eyes glistened with tears, not just from seeing the enemy broken, but from witnessing power being restored to the right hands. She finally slumped in her chair, the posture of someone who realized the game was over. I reached into my bag, pulled out copies of every communication she had sent and the recordings she had made. You will take these to everyone you've lied to, I said. You will make amends where you can. And you will understand, finally, that a woman protecting her family is not someone to underestimate. Her lips trembled. You can't do this, she whispered. I smiled softly. Oh, I can. And I have. Every step you underestimated, every misstep you took, has led you here. Alone. Exposed. Without an audience. And in that moment, the cafe felt silent except for the faint hum of the espresso machine, the tick of the wall clock. I had orchestrated the confrontation with precision, letting her own arrogance lead her into the trap. No yelling, no chaos, only cold, undeniable truth. As we left the cafe, Jamal glanced at me. Mom. I've never seen anything like that. You took her apart without touching her. That's how it's done, I said. Patience, strategy, control. Those who build empires on lies always fall when someone else learns to play the same game, only smarter. Tasha squeezed my hand. She won't ever forget this, will she? I shook my head. No. And that's the point. Back at home, I watched as the weight lifted from Jamal and Tasha. They understood something essential now. Power is not about shouting, nor about brute force. It's about timing, patience, and knowing when to strike. And somewhere, far away, I knew she was realizing that the hands she thought she had tied were free and ready to write a story she could never undo. The first wave of revenge had landed perfectly. But the storm wasn't over yet. The morning after the cafe confrontation, Atlanta felt different. Even the air seemed sharper, as if the city itself was aware that a reckoning had unfolded quietly in a corner of East Atlanta. Jamal, Tasha, and I sat at the kitchen table, sipping coffee, the ledger spread before us like a roadmap of truth. Every page, every note, every recording was in its place. The power had shifted. The storm had been felt, and the first wave had left its mark. But revenge, real revenge, isn't loud. It's a tide, slow, relentless, and impossible to outrun. The first call came just after 9. Tasha's mother, her voice shaking, no longer carried arrogance or control. There was panic, fear edged with disbelief. She had tried to manage the narrative, but the ledger, the receipts, the undeniable proof had traveled through the right hands. Every community leader, every neighbor, every mutual acquaintance who mattered had now been presented with the truth. Her empire of whispers and manipulation had crumbled. "You think you've won?" she demanded, trembling. I smiled, the kind of smile that carries years of wisdom and patience. "I didn't win," I said. "I restored balance. You overplayed your hand. You underestimated patience, intelligence, and family loyalty." Jamal leaned forward, more confident than I had seen him in months. "You tried to control my life. My choices. Everything. You wanted to make me your puppet. But you didn't count on my mother." Tasha's voice, calm and steady, added the final hammer. "And you didn't count on all of us working together." There was a silence on the line, a vacuum filled with the weight of undeniable truth. Then came the subtle sound of surrender, a quiet acknowledgement that she could not undo what had been exposed, that the game she had played so confidently had ended. After the call, we sat in silence. Not out of fear, but in the peace that comes when justice, long delayed, has been delivered. Jamal's eyes met mine. "Mom, I finally understand. You didn't just protect me. You taught me how to survive." I nodded. "Yes. And that's the lesson. Life will always throw shadows, doubts, and betrayals at you. But how you respond, how you hold yourself, and how you reclaim control, that's what defines you. Always remember that." Tasha reached over and squeezed my hand. "You've shown me strength I didn't know existed. Not the kind people see in headlines or loud confrontations. The quiet, strategic kind. The one that leaves no room for argument." The rest of the day passed in a calm that felt almost sacred. I called Evelyn. She answered, her voice low, trembling. I'm sorry, Lorraine. I didn't realize." "You realized too late," I said gently. "But the important thing is accountability. You will help us make amends where you can, and you will understand the consequences of your choices. Then, maybe, you can heal." I hung up and turned to Jamal and Tasha. There will always be consequences when someone tries to hurt your family. But consequences aren't always about punishment. They're about clarity. They're about learning who can be trusted, and who can't. Jamal leaned back, his shoulders finally free of the weight he'd been carrying. "I feel different," he said. "Stronger. Like I've been blind for so long, and now I can finally see." "That's exactly it," I said. "Strength isn't born from ease. It's born from weathering storms and understanding the people around you, and knowing when to act. The people who hurt us thought they had control. They didn't. And they never will again." That evening, as the sun dipped behind the rooftops of South Atlanta, I stood on the porch, watching the street bathed in orange light. There was a serenity that comes from reclaiming your space, your dignity, and your family. But underneath it, there was still a hum of satisfaction, the kind that comes from knowing that those who thought they could destroy you will remember the day they underestimated you. Tasha and Jamal joined me, leaning against the railing. We didn't need to speak. The shared silence was enough. We had survived betrayal, uncovered secrets, and orchestrated a quiet but devastating reckoning. And now, the power that had been stolen was firmly back where it belonged, in the hands of the family they tried to manipulate. I thought about the future, about lessons learned, about patience and strategy. Revenge had not been chaos, it had been careful, deliberate, and precise. The kind that leaves scars not on the innocent, but on those who deserved them. And that is the kind of justice that resonates far beyond a single act, the kind that echoes in every quiet victory, in every reclaimed moment of dignity. As the night deepened, I reflected on what we had done. The lies had been exposed. The manipulators humbled. The family strengthened. And yet, there was a subtle echo, a reminder that vigilance is never-ending, that shadows linger, and that the world can still test you. But for now, we were safe. Strong. Triumphant. I turned to Jamal and Tasha. Never forget this, I said. People will try to take what you have, to twist what you love, to make you question your reality. But when you face it with clarity, patience, and strategy, you can survive anything. And more than survive, you can win. Jamal nodded, Tasha squeezed my hand, and for the first time in months, I felt a quiet pride settle over us. Not the pride of victory alone, but of survival, wisdom, and the unmistakable strength that comes from facing betrayal and emerging unbroken. And somewhere in the shadows, I knew those who had tried to destroy us would never forget the family they underestimated, the mother who moved like a storm disguised in calm, or the day the ledger, the truth, and the quiet precision of justice brought them to their knees. Because some lessons are learned too late, but the ones we teach, carefully and deliberately, echo forever.